Thokozani family, Hotep, Thokozani, Hotep royals, Thokozani, Hotep. Guys, please tap the live. That way I can see if you can hear me first and foremost. Please tap the screen. How is everyone doing? Hope everyone is okay. Please tap the screen if you can hear me. Can you guys tap the screen? Please tap the screen. Tap the screen. So I'm here to talk about ancestors. This is part of we're on ancestors number 5 now. And I started with ancestors number 1. And what I was doing is I was sharing different aspects of that ancestral realm, ancestral veneration. This is all in the context, of course, of African spirituality. And before someone says there's no such thing as African spirituality, it's all universal, well, I beg to differ. I talk about African spirituality because this is spirituality that aligns melanated beings with their people. So I'm really here to talk to melanated beings and no one else. So I would like to put that out there respectfully so that you don't feel tempted to pipe into a conversation that has nothing to do with you. And if you are in the habit of doing that, go do it elsewhere rather than here. This really is not the place to be putting in your 2 cents. So for those who have been here before, who know what we're doing, please, tap the screen. That way we get this up in the algorithm and then I'll get started. It's cold over here, guys. It is cold in this part of the world. My goodness, it is freezing. It's really that bad. So I'm back. Spirit said, go back. So I'm back for us to continue our conversation on the ancestors. And again, for those of you who have not watched Ancestors Part 1 to 4, it is on YouTube. It is African Spirituality Gogonkanyezi Speaks. Togoza, LQ, Togozani. I see some regulars here. So yeah, numbers are going up. I'm not even going to wait because I'm going to repost this on YouTube. Please, guys, when you go to YouTube, please like, subscribe, comment. And if you are somebody who has Wi-Fi, please just watch through all the ads. This is where we're getting our revenue for our book. Our book is coming along just fine. So if all things go well, this book is probably going to be out latest end of January. So help Gogo along so that you can get in your hand a guide, a manual that will assist you in your own spiritual journey and in your own spiritual practice as a melanated being. Right. So what are we going to talk about today? We want to talk about engaging with your ancestors, right? In the other videos, we talked about how it's important to have a practice so that you are engaging your ancestors on a regular. But I found something, and again, this came through experience, and this also came through, my consultations. And I was reminded of it most recently through a couple of consultations that I've done. Why is it that when it comes to communicating with our ancestors, we are selective about the things we bring to them? We are very selective about the things we bring to them. It's much, and I know that it's a remnant probably out of Christianity, where because there's so many thou shalt not, thou shalt not, thou shalt not, and then there is this hell, and then there is this heaven, and then there is this Satan who's waiting with a pitchfork to fry you. I know that there was a lot of fear around anything to do with how you approached this God, right? This God, this all perfect God who made no mistakes, didn't want mistakes, would turn people into a pillar of salt just for turning around. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah always makes me laugh. She turned around to look at a burning city and she turned into a pillar of salt. Like, why? This God. Anyway, I'm not there. What I am trying to say, though, is in African spirituality, or in spirituality, it is a very different thing. Remember that in spirituality, there's no judgment, only consequences, right? So when you are communing with your ancestors, I'll give you a typical example of what I mean. How is it that you want or desire to be in a relationship, right? You want a partner in your life. But you don't take that to your altar to sit with your ancestors and to say, please, could you guide me? Or could you assist me? Or could you bring towards me into my field of vision a person who would be right for me? We don't do that. However, the minute things go belly up in your relationship, where are you? Thokozani bokoko na bomkhulu, please, I feel like maybe someone is doing something to this person. No. And then you wonder why things don't go wrong. I guess the point of this teaching is that there is no aspect or area in your life that you should be excluding your ancestors from. There isn't. There is no aspect or event in your life that you should be trying to keep from your ancestors. Actually quite silly, because how do you keep things away from your ancestors who are spirits of high intelligence, who are there and everywhere else at the same time? So tell me how that works, right? Many of us are finding ourselves stuck because we went into things, we went into businesses, we went into relationships, we went into partnerships, we went into collaborations without consulting them. Now, by consulting them, I'm not saying you coming to someone like me. No, I mean you sitting at the altar with them and laying out whatever it is you want to lay out. Remember, because they are spirit, they see beyond what you can see. There are limitations to your vision. There are limitations to your senses because you're trapped in this body. There are even limitations to your own intuition. Your own intuition can only take you so far because, yes, you're a spirit, but you're still trapped in this gross form of self, which is the body. So tell me then how you don't go to these all-powerful, all-seeing spirits to tell them or to consult with them about important things in your life. Simple things like, as you leave your house to go to work, you don't know who has planned what at your job. You don't know who's plotting what at your job. So why not sit before you leave your home and invoke and ask them to walk with you, and invoke and ask them to go before you so that they can pre-warn you of anything that may be coming your way. On that one, I also feel like we fail our children, those of us who do have children. Many of us have children who are leaving home, who are going to boarding schools, who are going off to college. Just your kids leaving the home space and going to school. Why are we failing to give our children back to our ancestors as their guardians? In the African context, that is done at birth. At birth, this child is given over to the ancestors and the guiding and guardian spirits of that clan and of that lineage and of that land to say, you see where we do not see. You're the best at guiding this spirit in human form. Therefore, we hand this child over. The thing people fail to remember is that in all of this, there is a thing called free will, right? There is a thing called free will where you get to decide and choose what you want to do. There's no one here, it's not a dictatorship where you're forced to do this or do that. However, whatever choices you're making, informed or uninformed, well-intentioned or ill-intentioned, just remember that there are consequences. So now, if you want a good outcome from something, why are you starting out on your own? Because like I explained in one of the other videos in the series, your ancestors' primary occupation is to take care of you. We also talked about how they couldn't take care of you unless they themselves were okay. So we dealt with that. Now they're okay. You have an active and alive altar. Umsamo uyaphila. Why are you continuing to kind of just go through life as a series of accidents, as a series of coincidences, instead of living consciously and intelligently by going through your active altar? Many of us also make a big, big mistake. You go to the altar and you ask, and you ask. And as you ask, things happen for you. How many of you are remembering to go back to that same altar to say thank you? And not just with your words. I've always said to people, in the spiritual realm, your words mean nothing if they're not accompanied by a ritual, if they are not accompanied by an offering. And that's just facts. And who knew this and who knows this? The old Christian church. That is why there is an offering plate that goes round in the church. Originally, it wasn't to make money off of people. Originally, it was to demonstrate that there was an energy exchange taking place. You're asking something of this deity they call God, and you have to offer something as an energy exchange. It's the same at the altar, your ancestral altar. No difference. Those fuckers just plagiarized everything. That's all. They just stole everything. But that's the same at the altar. You go, you make your request. 7 days later, boom, your request is met. And then you forget to go and say thank you. Granted, there may be periods or seasons in our African calendar year where you do a big sort of gratitude or thank you ritual or ceremony. That involves a big hoo-ha. But the smaller things that are happening in between, why aren't you acknowledging by saying thank you? By just kneeling, lighting your things, having your this one, I'm not going to say the word because then they're going to flag me. This one, lighting impepo, lighting your incense, lighting your candle, putting some water there. Some people go all out and say, no, I'm not just going to put water there. I'm going to put some liquor there. I'm going to put some biscuits there. I'm going to put the this, whatever it is, wherever you come from, whatever you think will please your ancestors. Those of us who come from Africa tend to use more traditional things on the altar, especially if you are, say, ancestrally gifted like me, and you know that the ancestors that you move with are old school ancestors. So you give them things that would be familiar to them, right? Why aren't you doing those small things? Everybody seems to think that, there's some kind of magic that happens with this whole ancestral thing. That once I connect with my ancestors, that's it, boom, everything is a go. No. It's like any other relationship. It requires reciprocity. It requires maintenance. What relationship do you know does not require maintenance? What relationship do you know that can go on and on with one person just giving and giving and the other person just taking? And some of you approach your ancestors that way. You've got a problem, they solve it. You forget to go back. Energy exchange, simple energy exchange. You forget to go back to say, thank you. Those are some of the few things that I'm noticing through my consultations that people are missing. And once you tweak that and you fix some of those little things, you start to see that, yes, your altar is really alive because you are getting the responses that you need when and as you need them. Sometimes there's nothing wrong. You can go to your altar without necessarily always going to ask for things. You can go to the altar simply to sit in communion and just be. Not here to ask for anything. Pour a drink, pour some libation, sit with them. I have an old Mkulu who likes to smoke a pipe. I hope I don't get into trouble for saying that. Yeah, and then we sit together, and he's got a hat that he has, favorite hat. I put that on my head. And, I sit and I commune. I'm not asking for anything. Right? So understand the purpose of the altar and understand that it is about building that relationship. And when you're in a relationship, a trust relationship with someone, there are no secrets. Can't hide stuff. And this is disingenuous because how are you hiding stuff from spirits? Like, what? It doesn't even make sense. Because they know what's on your mind before you even utter it. It's a spirit. They are in communion with your higher self all the time, continuously. Can't lie to them. Can't hide from them. But what this does, this relationship and this chat, talking back and forth, the call and response, is it strengthens that relationship that you have with your ancestors. And you begin to understand certain things that are happening in your life because of that closeness. When it's not there, because remember, life happens in cycles. There's another thing people don't realize. Life happens in cycles. There are times in that cycle of life where you're right there at the top. Right? It's beautiful, it's great, everything seems to be moving. There will be times in that cycle of life where you're in the in-between. Things are so, they're not as great. And of course, you yearn for the way things were, right? There will be times in your life where you're rock bottom. It's part of the cycle of life. The problem with us is that we've become so accustomed to feeling good. We've become so accustomed to microwave things. Everything must be fast. Everything must move quickly. It must move on my time. And the thing about that is you then start running around like a headless chicken thinking somebody has done something to you, when no, in actual fact, you're just going through a season in your life that is a natural part of life cycle where things are dry. If you are in communion with your ancestors, you will understand that. Because if you're in communion with your ancestors, if something is truly wrong, they would show you that either through the dreamscape or through visions, or somehow they would show you that something is wrong that you need to attend to. But if you're going through a normal cycle of things and you know that you have a very active and alive altar, then you need to accept that whatever it is you're going through is part of the cycle of life. Nothing wrong with you. Nothing wrong with your job. Nothing wrong. Okay? You're just going through a normal slump that every single spirit having a human experience will get to have several times over in this lifetime. And the other problem too speaking of all this is, stop comparing yourself to people. Most of us run the risk of not learning the lessons we need to learn when we are on that lowest or when we hit rock bottom, because you're too busy looking at everybody else's life around you and thinking, why me? Why me? Why are their lives like that? Well, the question is, why not you? Because this is your life. This is your path. Stay in your lane. Put blinkers on so you stay focused on what you're supposed to be doing or not supposed to be doing. You mess yourselves up because you continue to look left, you continue to look right. Your answers don't lie there. Your answers lie with you, your ancestors, your spirit guides. That's where your answers lie. You can't look at somebody else's journey and think, oh, why am I going through this? That's how, do you know why somebody will say my life is not moving as it is? Because you're comparing yourself with someone else's life. Let's be honest. Because it's all relative. You can say, there was a period in my life where things were like this and things were going well. Now they're not going well anymore. But most of the time, you feel dissatisfied with where you are and what's going on with you because you're looking at somebody else's walk and somebody else's path. Many people who are consulting, yes, because they're concerned about their path and what's going on. They want answers. But a lot of the time it's because there's someone who they're comparing themselves with and they're saying, she's the same age as me, this and this and this. She seems put together. How come her things are moving? That is not spirituality. In fact, you're far from spiritual if you're operating on that frequency. The frequency you should be on is, my ancestral altar is active. I commune with my people. I listen to my people. I speak with my people. I ask for guidance. I give honor. I give reverence. That's why we call it veneration. I venerate and give them the due respect. I show gratitude. Because one thing's for sure, when you go to your altar and your altar is active and you ask for something, it will happen. If it is in your greatest good and you're not about to go and harm someone, it will happen. So the evidence that your ancestral altar is well are the things that you're asking about, you getting the answers in a timeous manner. So why are you concerned about what anyone else is doing? Because whatever your ancestors bringing you is what they're bringing you. Whatever the next person's ancestor is bringing them, that's what they're bringing. It's got nothing to do with you. Why are you over there? You should be here where you are. Now, I just wanted to say, this is why we talk about purity when approaching the ancestors. The purity we talk about is not the purity of your body. There's that too. We'll come to that. We're talking about the purity of intention and the purity of your thoughts and the purity of your emotions. Meaning to say you are transparent. Meaning to say in order to be honest with your ancestors, you've got to be honest with yourself. Make sense? You got to be honest with yourself. It's okay to ask for a partner. But why are you asking for a partner with money? Why are you asking for a partner who drives a Mercedes-Benz? Why are you asking for a partner who will come and take care of you? Ask yourself those questions first before you take it to the altar. Because that which you're asking for is very superficial and shallow compared to what it is that they may have in store for you. And sometimes your answers are, oh, you want a rich man with money who can take care of you. Good. Then someone comes into the periphery of your vision. Boom. Connection made until you discover how they're making their money. And your ancestors are like, yeah, serves you right for being greedy. This after you now discover this person is doing some crazy money rituals to make all of this money. You wake up one day and there's a snake looking at you going, hi. And then you're like, wow. Yeah, but your ancestors are like, yeah, but you asked, Mos. You said you wanted a rich man who could take care of you. We gave you one. We gave you what you asked for. Now you're crying. They'll be in council going, what's wrong with this child? Like, what is her business? She asked for this. Now she's crying. She doesn't want to. I always say, when you go to that altar, be careful what you ask for. Which is another reason you'll find that we teach people not to approach the altar in anger. Not to approach the altar when you're really, really hurt. Some of us have learned the hard way how dangerous the emotion of anger can be. Because decisions that you make when you are angry are very different from decisions that you make when you've calmed and cooled down. Now, when you approach your altar in a state of hurt and pain and you're in tears and you light your impepo and you start putting the things and you are talking about whoever has hurt you, whoever has done this, mark my words, go pumis doom. Somebody's going to get hurt. And that may not be what you intended. That may not be what you intended. But remember, these spirits are very protective of you. And if you are a Dlozi child or somebody who's ancestrally gifted and have initiated, this becomes even more important. Because there are some powerful spirits that some, not all, but some initiated people move with. That if you, listen, if you cry and you invoke them in a state of anger, someone will be unalived without question. And then you live with the pain of knowing that that's not what you meant to happen. You were just angry, and in a moment of anger, you said some things. You said some things. And it happened. For the most part, your wish is their command. For the most part. We offer respect and reverence, but your wish is very often their command. That's why I said you ask for a rich man and they'll say, okay, I'm going to give you a rich man. They'll bring what you asked for because your wish is their command. You may not be able to deal with the consequences of the choice or the thing you asked for, but at the end of the day, they did their part. You asked for this, we gave him to you. He's a demon, but you said you want a rich man. Right. Very important to understand these things, and that's why it's very important to develop that relationship so that you know how your folks roll. My folks ain't going to roll the same way as yours. We come from different lineages. We have different core. So you have to understand your people. That's why I always say, when it comes to the bloodline ancestors particularly, ask questions at home. If you are fortunate enough to still have elders in the family, ask questions. Even ask questions about the specificity of how you revere or honor your ancestors. Because that's another thing, and I want to bring this to the fore so that people understand. Yes, I said the 4 elements have to be represented on your altar. But there are different ethnicities that do things slightly differently. For example, the Karanga people, the Basotho, I know very well that when they venerate, they don't burn impepo, but they will use amabele, which is an ancient grain, or they will use maize flour as part of the phahla, as part of the connection that they do with their ancestors. Right? Now, if you're somebody in the diaspora, That's why I say just the 4 basic elements on your altar is enough. It's a good start. But you may find that as you go on and on, your ancestors start showing you certain things that they have a preference for. They may not like white sage. In which case you'll know soon enough, because every time you try to light it, then you start talking, this thing goes out. And you light it again, it goes out. So then you know, okay, let me not bother. It's not necessary. The only way you'll know that is if you start with all the basics, and then by a process of elimination, as you get to know who's who, you remove. And then by a process of addition, you start to do the add-ons of the things that they want. And I'm not here to tell you there's no such thing as a wrong and a right way to venerate, because we are all so vastly different. And as different as we are, that is how different our lineages and our ancestors are. The common denominator is they are bloodline spirits, and that there are basic things that you can use to venerate. And they'll show you. As you develop that relationship, they'll show you. And sometimes they're showing you is not in a dream or in some sort of super spectacular way. You may be lighting something and something will tell you, don't do that. Don't do it. Then don't do it. And then watch what happens. Right? So understanding that, number one, you can't hide anything from your ancestors. Understanding too that put them in all aspects of your decision making if you want to be successful. Right? I know a lot of business women now who are becoming spiritual because they realize that there was a missing component to how they are conducting and running their business. We can no longer move the way the colonizer taught us to move. We can no longer have shady ethics and morals the way the colonizer taught us that we could do it if we could get away with it. See, in this realm, you can't do things just because you think there's nobody watching, because you're always being watched. The first person who's watching you is yourself, your higher self, your spirit self. And then you have a whole entourage of ancestors who are very active and watching you. So this idea that if I can get away with it, I'll do it. You're not fooling anyone but yourself. That's why I said this journey is not about living for show. It's not about living for other people. It's about authenticity. It's about doing what you know you're supposed to be doing when you're supposed to be doing. Never mind what everybody else is doing around you. If somebody leaves $20,000 here and there's absolutely no one, and you take it, and you think you're getting away with something, you're getting away with nothing, because you're being watched. Firstly, by yourself. And you can hear yourself talking to you, say, but this thing you're doing, and you try to convince your lower vibrational self, tries to convince you that no one is watching, just take it. The part of you that is in Ma'at, the spirit you that is God, like that is divine, that is in Ma'at, is trying to say no. If you let low vibrational you take over, but then remember what I said, there's no judgment, there are only consequences. Because one of the laws or the confessions of Ma'at is, I do not take what doesn't belong to me. So you violated Ma'at, which is a universal law. You have violated yourself. And you have violated your lineage. That's why I take things to them, no matter what it is. If you're not clear about something, take it to them. Right? And don't invoke your rogue gangster ancestors who are into doing shady stuff just so that you hear someone just saying, go for it. Because they are there. But, you know, we talked about this before and what we do about those kind of ancestors, right? So I hope this was useful. I'm gonna post this if anyone needs it. I'm gonna post this on YouTube. But I really hope this was useful. It just came to me, like I said, I had a couple of consultations where I was like, because then you have somebody come to me and say, "Oh, can you tell me a little bit about what's gonna happen with my love life?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And then I go, "Maybe you can do a reading." I'm like, "I don't wanna." Like, yeah, but you know, because I don't know things in my love life. So I said, "Have you taken this to your ancestors?" No. Do you venerate? No. Then what are we talking about? I'm not the authority over your life. Can I see? Maybe. I mean, I can see, but see, I don't make things easy for you guys because I've got all the tools that I need to divine, but I don't make it easy for you because really what I'm invested in is teaching you to connect with your ancestors so that you're not constantly coming to people like me and sometimes being misled down the garden path. So you want a partner, you want to go and talk to your people. Don't come to me. I might see something in the cards for you. Yes, this is tall, dark, and handsome and everything. Okay, so what? But why aren't you talking to your ancestors so that they bring in the periphery of your vision the person that's right for you? If you relinquish that responsibility to them because they know all and see all, then you stand a better chance at something successful and they will keep away the hound dogs and the snake keepers. They'll keep those away from you. Because you are relinquishing with that knowledge that they want what is best for me. And sometimes we don't know what's best for us. Come on, ladies, you know I'm talking to you. Sometimes we want what feels good, but not necessarily what is best for us. That is where these elders come in. Because remember, these elders are invested in their legacy. They are invested in you doing well so that their legacy can live on. You sometimes are not even thinking legacy. You are not even thinking best outcomes. You, in that moment, are thinking, okay, let me stop. You know it. So sometimes, because we get a little silly up here, when it comes to especially matters of umcholo wanisa and this love thing, it's best to give it to those who see beyond what you are seeing and have them be in charge of that section of your life. Right? So, yes, cheers with the copper cup. I'm not drinking anything inebriating. It's just water. Water. Anyway, on that note, I'm going. You guys, I always come here and then I end up spending more time than I intended, and then I just keep going and going and going. You said something about breaking the law of ma'at. You didn't hear me. What I said was, when you violate or when you do something that is unethical or immoral, you are breaking the laws of ma'at. I was talking about in the context that sometimes we do things and we think we're getting away with it because we're not being watched or nobody can see us. And that's the biggest lie we tell ourselves, because there is a whole realm in which your ancestors and other spirits reside that are watching you. You think you're not being watched because what you're concerned with is the material and the physical. You're concerned with the physical person who might open the door and see you do something bad or do something nefarious. But the truth is that you are surrounded by beings who are watching you. And you are also the first person who's watching you. Your higher self is watching you. And so when you don't listen to your higher self, who is in Ma'at, who strives to be in Ma'at, you go low vibrational and you allow low vibrational you, this base body, to be what overcomes you and you end up stealing or doing something that your higher self knows you should not be doing. You're violating ma'at. That's what I was talking about. Good morning, South Africa. I see. The people always ask this question. So, Gogo, you offered something about offering when you pass. It depends on how you do your offering. A lot of the times when we do an offering, so I'll give myself as an example. You don't have to do it my way, but I found it works. What I do is in my space or my shrine, I will lay out something and I will leave it there overnight. And usually if it's overnight and I've opened packets of things, because that, your ancestors, how do your ancestors eat? Your ancestors don't have a mouth, a physical mouth to eat. It's the essence or the smells of the things that you put in there, right? Because what carries this essence? Umoya. What carries this smell? Umoya. What are your ancestors? Umoya. Spirit. So it's carried. So we open things. That's why I always laugh at people who put things on their offering and it's all closed and sealed. I'm like, Mara, how is this working? Because it's in a glass bottle. Let it open. Let that essence come out. Pour it in a glass. That's why we pour things. Your packets of chips or whatever, take them out. Not all, but take a few and put them on a plate. Right? Your cookies, whatever it is you're offering, take some out. Now, the things, once you've laid out your altar, you take the packets with the leftovers out. That you can eat. But what I do is, especially if my river is fine, is in the morning, it's been there overnight, it's gone through the 12 o'clock hour, the 3 o'clock hour, I have my candles burning, I've left them in there, and I go and I sleep. In the morning, I gather all those things up. Now, if it's organic, most of the things we're offering are fruit and so on and so. This is all organic stuff. I just go to the river and I sort of complete the ritual for myself by talking and invoking them in the river. And I do that also because I'm over here. So it's almost like I'm doing a double, like I'm doing a, what do you call this? Like when you do something and then you do something similar just to reinforce. Yeah, then I go and I paddle at the river, I do whatever I need to do, and then I offer it in the river. Also because if you have water spirits, that's like the ultimate way to do this. And then you're done. So now you've pleased everybody. You've settled everybody. And you go on about your business. Right? If not, if it happens to be snowing like it is now, the river is frozen. I can't go throwing things on a frozen river. So I would gather whatever it is I gather. I just put it in a bag and I throw it in the trash, and that's that. Right? And if it's, so whatever's left it goes to the kids and they can have that. But the actual food itself, no. Once it's been open and left there for them, it's theirs. And I take it, I give it. I mean, if it's fruit, sometimes in the winter we have deer because it's so horrible and there's no food. Throw some out to them. The deer love it. And that's like, for me, the ultimate because, from nature back to nature instead of the trash can. But you can put it in the trash can if there's no option. Right? The question about, and we're not talking about one particular ancestor, right? You have an entourage of ancestors. You may have your favorites, but then you can't leave anybody out. You accept the ones who are not of the light, and the ones that were not. There's a whole video. You're going to have to go on YouTube. I'm not going to repeat myself. I'm sorry. Like I said, there was a whole series. This is Ancestors Part 5 that I'm doing. That's why I'm talking. I'm talking because I'm talking to people who I assume already know. If you don't, go and start from the bottom, and this whole story that I told here will make perfect sense for you. Ne? On that note, South Africa, good morning. Grand rising, actually. Grand rising to you on that side. America and the rest, sleep peacefully. Masithokozeni.